Bald Soprano by Eugène Ionesco. Tonight playing Mr. Smith is
Kevin Bain.
Playing Mrs. Smith.
Eileen Nicolosi.
Playing Mr. Martin.
David Mackler.
Playing Mrs. Martin.
Elizabeth Bove.
Playing Mary the maid. Marialana.
You.
Playing the fire chief.
Me, Bernie Bosio.
A middle-class English interior with English armchairs and English evening. Mr. Smith, an Englishman, seated in his English armchair and wearing English slippers, is smoking his English pipe and reading an English newspaper. Near, an English fire. He is wearing English spectacles and a small gray English mustache. Beside him in another English armchair, Mrs. Smith, an Englishwoman, is darning some English socks. A long moment of English silence. The English clock strikes 17 English strokes.
There, it's 9 o'clock. We've drunk the soup, eaten the fish and chips, and the English salad. The children have drunk English water. We've eaten well this evening. That's because we live in the suburbs of London and because our name is Smith. Potatoes are very good fried and fat. The salad oil was not rancid. The oil from the grocer at the corner is better quality than the oil from the grocer across the street. It is even better than the oil from the grocer at the bottom of the street. However, I prefer not to tell them that their oil is bad. However, the oil from the grocer at the corner is still the best. Mary did the potatoes very well this evening. The last time she did not do them well. I do not like them when they are well done. The fish was fresh. It made my mouth water. I had 2 helpings. No, 3 helpings. That made me go to the WC. You also had 3 helpings. However, the 3rd time, you took less than the first 2 times. While, as for me, I took a great deal more. I eat better than you this evening. Why is that? Usually it is you who eats more. It is not appetite you lack. But still, the soup was perhaps a little too salt. It was saltier than you, but also had too many leeks and not enough onions. I regret I didn't advise Mary to add some aniseed stars. The next time, I'll know better. Our little boy wanted to drink some beer. He's going to love getting tiddly. He's like you. At table, did you notice how he stared at the bottle? But I poured some water from the jug into his glass. He was thirsty and he did drink it. Helen is like me. She's a good manager. Thrifty, plays the piano. She never asked to drink English beer. She's like our little daughter who drinks only milk and eats only porridge. It's obvious that she's only 2. She's named Peggy. The quince and bean pie was marvelous. It would have been nice, perhaps, to have had a small glass of Australian Burgundy with the sweet. But I did not bring the bottle to the table because I did not wish to set the children a bad example of gluttony. They must learn to be sober and temperate. Mrs. Parker knows a Romanian grocer by the name of Popescu Rosenfeld, who has just come from Constantinople. He is a great specialist in yogurt. He has a diploma from the School of Yogurt Making in Adrianople. Tomorrow, I shall buy a large pot of native Romanian yogurt from him. One doesn't often find such things here in the suburbs of London. Yogurt is excellent for the stomach, the kidneys, the appendix, and apophysis. It was Dr. Mackenzie King who told me that. He's the one who takes care of the children of our neighbors, the Johns. He's a good doctor. One can trust him. He never prescribes any medicine that he's not tried out on himself first. Before operating on Parker, he had his own liver operated on first, although he was not the least bit ill.
But how does it happen that the doctor pulled through while Parker died?
Because the operation was successful in the doctor's case, and it was not in Parker's.
Then Mackenzie is not a good doctor. The operation should have succeeded with both of them, or else both should have died.
Why?
A conscientious doctor must die with his patient if they can't get well together. A captain of a ship goes down with the ship into the briny deep. He does not survive alone.
One cannot compare a patient with a ship.
Why not? A ship has its diseases too. Moreover, your doctor is as hale as a ship. That's why he should have perished at the same time as his patient, like the captain and his ship.
Ah, I hadn't thought of that. Perhaps it is true. And then, what conclusion do you draw from this?
All doctors are quacks, and all patients too. Only the Royal Navy is honest in England.
But not sailors.
Naturally. Here's the thing I don't understand. In the newspaper, they always give the age of deceased persons, but never the age of the newly born. That doesn't make sense.
I never thought of that.
It says here that Bobby Watson died.
My God, the poor man. When did he die?
Why do you pretend to be astonished? You know very well that he's been dead these past 2 years. Surely you remember that we attended his funeral a year and a half ago?
Oh yes, of course, I do remember. I remembered it right away, but I don't understand why you yourself were so surprised to see it in the paper.
It wasn't in the paper. It's been 3 years since his death was announced. I remembered it through an association of ideas.
Ah, what a pity! He was so well preserved.
He was the handsomest corpse in Great Britain. He didn't look his age. Poor Bobby. He'd been dead for 4 years, and he was still warm. A veritable living corpse. And how cheerful he was.
Ah, poor Bobby.
Which poor Bobby do you mean?
It is his wife that I mean. She is called Bobby too, Bobby Watson. Since they both had the same name, you can never tell one from the other when you saw them together. It was only after his death that are still people today who confuse her with the deceased and offer their condolences to him. Do you know her?
I only met her once by chance at Bobby's burial.
I've never seen her. Is she pretty?
Oh, she has regular features, and yet one cannot say that she is pretty. She is too big and stout. Her features are not regular, but still one can say that she is very pretty. She is a little too small and too thin. She's a voice teacher.
Ah, and when did they plan to be married, those two?
Next spring at the latest.
We shall have to go to their wedding, I suppose.
We shall have to give them a wedding present. I wonder what.
Why don't we give them one of the 7 silver salvers that we were given us for our wedding and which have never been of any use to us?
How sad for her to be left a widow so young.
Oh, fortunately, they had no children. Oh, that was all they needed, children. Poor woman, how could she have managed?
She's still young. She might very well remarry. She looks so well in mourning.
But who would take care of the children? You know very well that they have a boy and a girl. What are their names?
Bobby and Bobby, like their parents. Bobby Watson's uncle, old Bobby Watson, is a rich man and very fond of the boy. He might very well pay for Bobby's education.
Oh, that would be very proper. And Bobby Watson's aunt, old Bobby Watson, might very well in her turn pay for the education of Bobby Watson. Bobby Watson's daughter. That way, Bobby Watson's mother, could remarry. Has she anyone in mind?
Yes, a cousin of Bobby Watson's.
Who? Bobby Watson?
Oh, which Bobby Watson do you mean?
Why, Bobby Watson, the son of old Bobby Watson. the late Bobby Watson's other uncle.
No, it's not that one. It's someone else. It's Bobby Watson, the son of old Bobby Watson, the late Bobby Watson's aunt.
Are you referring to Bobby Watson, the commercial traveler?
All the Bobby Watsons are commercial travelers.
What a difficult trade. However, they do well at it.
Yes, when there's no competition.
And when there is no competition,
On Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Tuesdays.
3 days a week. And what does Bobby Watson do on those days?
He rests and he sleeps.
But why doesn't he work those 3 days if there's no competition?
I don't know everything. I can't answer all your idiotic questions.
Oh, are you trying to humiliate me?
You know very well that I'm not.
Men are all alike. You sit there all day long, a cigarette in your mouth, or you powder your nose and rouge your lips 50 times a day, or else you drink like a fish.
But what would you say if you saw men acting like women do, smoking all day long, powdering, rouging their lips, drinking whiskey?
It's nothing to me. But if you're only saying that to annoy me, I don't care for that kind of joking. You know that very well.
Oh, my little ducky daddies. What a little spitfire you are. You know that I only said it as a joke? What a ridiculous pair of old lovers we are. Come, let's put out the lights and go bye-byes.
I'm the maid. I have spent a very pleasant afternoon. I've been to the cinema with a man, and I've seen a film with some women. After the cinema, we went to drink some brandy and milk, and then read the newspaper.
I hope that you spent a pleasant afternoon, that you went to the cinema with a man, and that you drank some brandy and milk.
And the newspaper.
Mr. and Mrs. Martin, your guests are at the door. They're waiting for me. They didn't dare come in by themselves. They were supposed to have dinner with you this evening.
Oh, yes, we were expecting them, and we were hungry. Since they didn't put in an appearance, we were going to start dinner without them. We've had nothing to eat all day. You should not have gone out.
But it was you who gave me permission.
We didn't do it on purpose.
I bought me a chamber pot.
My dear Mary, please open the door and ask Mr. and Mrs. Martin to step in. We will change quickly.
Why have you come so late? You are not very polite. People should be punctual, do you understand? But sit down there anyway and wait now that you're here.
Excuse me, madam. Hold on. There I am. Excuse me, madam, but it seems to me, unless I'm mistaken, that I've met you somewhere before.
I too, sir. It seems to me I've met you somewhere before.
Was it by any chance at Manchester that I caught a glimpse of you, madam?
That is very possible. I am originally from the city of Manchester, but I do not have a very good memory, sir. I cannot say whether it was there that I caught a glimpse of you or not.
Good God, that's curious. I too am originally from the city of Manchester, madam.
Oh, that is curious.
Isn't that curious? Only I left the city of Manchester about 5 weeks ago.
That is curious. What a bizarre coincidence. I too, sir. I left the city of Manchester about 5 weeks ago.
Madam, I took the 8:30 morning train, which arrives in London at 4:45.
That is curious. How very bizarre. And what a coincidence. I took the same train, sir. I too.
Good Lord, how curious. Perhaps then, madam, it was on the train that I saw you?
It is indeed possible. That is unlikely. It is plausible. And after all, why not? But I do not recall it.
I traveled second class, madam. There is no second class in England, but I always travel second class.
That is curious. How very bizarre. And what a coincidence that I, too, sir, I traveled second class.
How curious that is.
Mm,
Perhaps we did meet in second class, my dear lady.
that is certainly possible. And it is not at all unlikely. But I do not remember very well, my dear sir.
My seat was in coach number 8, compartment 6, my dear
How
lady.
curious that is. My seat was also in coach number 8, compartment 6, my dear sir.
How curious that is, and what a bizarre coincidence. Perhaps we met in compartment 6, my dear lady.
It is indeed possible, and after all. But I do not recall it, my dear sir.
To tell the truth, my dear lady, I do not remember it either. But it is possible that we caught a glimpse of each other there, and as I think of it, it seems to me even very likely.
Oh, truly, of course, truly, sir.
How curious it is. I had seat number 3 next to the window, my dear lady.
Oh, good Lord, how curious and bizarre. I had seat number 6 next to the window, across from you, my dear sir.
Good God, how curious that is, and what a coincidence. We were then seated facing each other, my dear lady. It is there that we must have seen each other.
How curious it is. It is possible, but I do not recall it, sir.
To tell the truth, my dear lady, I do not remember it either. However, it is possible that we saw each other on that occasion.
It is true. But I am not at all sure of it, sir.
Dear madam, were you not the lady who asked me to place her suitcase in the luggage rack, and who thanked me and gave me permission to smoke?
But of course, that must have been I, sir. How curious it is, how curious it is, and what a coincidence.
How curious it is, how bizarre, what a coincidence. And, well, it was perhaps at that moment that we came to know each other, madam.
How curious it is, and what a coincidence. It is indeed possible, my dear sir. However, I do not believe that I recall it.
Nor do I, madam. Since coming to London, I have resided in Bromfield Street, my dear lady.
How curious that is. How bizarre. I, too, since coming to London, I have resided in Bromfield Street, my dear sir.
How curious that is. Well then, perhaps we have seen each other in Bromfield Street, my dear lady.
How curious it is, how bizarre. I, too. Oh, yes, how curious it is and how bizarre. It is indeed possible, after all. But I do not recall it, my dear sir.
I reside at number 19, my dear lady.
How curious that is. I also reside at number 19, my dear sir.
Well then, perhaps we have seen each other in that house, dear lady.
It is indeed possible, but I do not recall it, my dear sir.
My flat is on the 5th floor, number 8, my dear lady.
How curious it is. Good Lord, how bizarre. And what a coincidence. I, too, reside on the 5th floor in number 8, flat number 8, dear sir.
How curious it is, how curious it is, how curious it is, and what a coincidence. You know, in my bedroom there is a bed, and it is covered with a green eiderdown. This room with the bed and the green eiderdown is at the end of the corridor between the WC and the bookcase, dear lady.
What a coincidence. Good Lord, what a coincidence. My bedroom, too, has a bed with a green eiderdown and is at the end of the corridor between the WC, dear sir, and the bookcase.
How bizarre! How curious, strange. Then, madam, we live in the same room and sleep in the same bed, dear lady. It is perhaps there we have met.
Oh, how curious it is, and what a coincidence. It is indeed possible that we have met there, and perhaps even last night, but I do not recall it, dear sir.
I have a little girl, my little daughter. She lives with me, dear lady. She is 2 years old. She's blonde. She has a white eye and a red eye. She is very pretty. Her name is Alice, dear lady.
What a bizarre coincidence. I too have a little girl. She is 2 years old, has a white eye and a red eye. She is very pretty. And her name is Alice too, dear sir.
How curious it is, and what a coincidence. And bizarre. Perhaps they are the same, dear lady.
How curious it is. It is indeed possible, dear sir.
A long moment of silence. The clock strikes 29 times. After having reflected at length, Mr. Martin gets up slowly and unhurriedly, moves toward Mrs. Martin, who, surprised by his solemn air, has also gotten up very quietly. Mr. Martin, in the same flat, monotonous voice, slightly sing-song.
Then, my dear lady, I believe there can be no doubt about it that we have seen each other before, and you are my own wife. Elizabeth, I have found you again.
Mr. and Mrs. Martin approach without haste. They embrace without expression. The clock strikes once, very loud. The striking of the clock must be so loud it makes the audience jump. The Martins do not hear it. Mrs. Martin?
I'm sorry. Donald, it's you, darling.
They sit together in the same armchair, their arms around each other, and fall asleep. The clock strikes several more times. Mary, on tiptoe, a finger to her lips, enters quietly and addresses the audience. Elizabeth and Donald are now too happy to be able to hear me. I can therefore let you in on a secret. Elizabeth is not Elizabeth. Donald is not Donald. And here is the proof. The child that Donald spoke of is not Elizabeth's daughter. They are not the same person. Donald's daughter has one white eye and one red eye, like Elizabeth's daughter, whereas Donald's child has a white right eye and a red left eye. Elizabeth's child has a red right eye and a white left eye. Thus, all of Donald's system of deduction collapses when it comes up against this last obstacle, which destroys his whole theory. In spite of the extraordinary coincidences, which seem to be definite proof, Donald and Elizabeth, not being the parents of the same child, are not Donald and Elizabeth. It is in vain that he thinks he is Donald. It is in vain that she thinks she is Elizabeth. He believes in vain that she is an Elizabeth. She believes in vain that he is Donald. They are sadly deceived. But who is the true Donald? Who is the true Elizabeth? Who has any interest in prolonging this confusion? I don't know. Let's not try to know. Let's leave things as they are. My real name is Sherlock Holmes. The clock strikes, much as it likes. After several seconds, Mr. and Mrs. Martin separate and take the chairs they had at the beginning.
Darling, let's forget all that has not passed between us. And now that we have found each other again, let's not try to lose each other anymore and live as before.
Yes, darling.
Good evening, dear friend. Oh,
Good evening, dear friends. Please forgive us for having made you wait so long. We thought that we should extend you the courtesy to which you are entitled. And as soon as we learned that you had been kind enough to give us the pleasure of coming to see us without prior notice, we hurried to dress for the occasion.
We've had nothing to eat all day, and we've been waiting 4 whole hours for you. Why have you come so late?
Mr. and Mrs. Smith sit facing their guests. The striking of the clock underlines the speeches more or less strongly according to the case. The Martins, particularly Mr. Martin, Mrs. Martin, seem embarrassed and timid. For this reason, the conversation begins with difficulty and the words uttered at the beginning awkwardly. A long, embarrassed silence at first, then other silences and hesitations follow.
Hmm.
Oh, but definitely.
We all have colds.
Nevertheless, it's not chilly.
There's no draft.
Oh, no. Fortunately.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Don't you feel well?
No, he's wet his pants.
Oh, sir, at your age, you shouldn't.
The heart is ageless.
That's true.
So they say.
They also say the opposite.
The truth lies somewhere between the two.
That's true.
You travel so much, you must have many interesting things to tell us.
My dear, tell us what you've seen today.
It's scarcely worth the trouble, for no one would believe me.
We're not going to question your sincerity.
You will offend us if you think that.
You will offend them, my dear, if you think that.
Oh, well, today I witnessed something extraordinary, something very incredible.
Tell us quickly, my dear.
Oh, this is going to be amusing.
At last.
Well, today, when I went shopping to buy some vegetables, which are getting to be dearer and dearer.
Where is it all going to end?
You shouldn't interrupt, my dear. It's very rude.
In the street near a cafe, I saw a man properly dressed, about 50 years old, or not even that, who...
What?
What?
Don't interrupt, my dear. You're disgusting.
My dear, it is you who interrupted first, you bore.
Hush, hush. What was this man doing?
Well, I'm sure you'll say that I'm making it up. He was down on one knee and he was bent over.
Oh!
Yes, bent over.
Not possible.
Yes, bent over. I went near him to see what he was doing.
And?
He was tying his shoelace, which had come undone.
Fantastic. If someone else had told me this, I'd not believe it.
Why not? One sees things even more extraordinary every day when one walks around. For instance, today in the underground, I myself saw a man quietly sitting on a seat, reading his newspaper.
What a character!
Perhaps it was the same man.
Ding dong.
Goodness, someone is ringing.
Oh, there must be somebody there. I'll go and see. Nobody.
I'm going to give you another example.
Goodness,
Ding dong.
someone is ringing.
There must be somebody there. I'll go and see. No one.
You were saying that you were going to give us another example.
Oh, yes.
Ding
Goodness,
dong.
someone is there.
I'm not going to open the door again.
Yes, but there must be someone there.
The first time there was no one. The second time, no one. Why do you think that there is someone there now?
Because someone has rung.
That's no reason.
What? When one hears the doorbell ring, that means someone is at the door ringing to have the door opened.
Not always. You've just seen otherwise.
In most cases, yes.
As for me, when I go to visit someone, I ring in order to be admitted. I think that everyone does the same thing, and that each time there is a ring, there must be someone there.
It's true in theory, but in reality, things happen differently. You have just seen otherwise.
Your wife is right.
Oh, you women, you always stand up for each other.
Well, I'll go and see. You can't say that I am obstinate, but you see that there's no one there. You see, there's no one there. know who's men who always think they're right and who's always wrong.
Goodness, someone is ringing. There must be someone there.
Don't send me to open the door again. You see that it was useless. Experience teaches us that when one hears the doorbell ring, it is because there is never anyone there.
Never.
That's not entirely accurate.
In fact, it's false. When one hears the doorbell ring, it is because there is someone there.
He won't admit he's wrong.
My husband is very obstinate too.
There's someone there.
That's not impossible.
No,
Yes?
I tell you no. In any case, you are not going to disturb me again for nothing. If you wish to know, go and look yourself.
I'll go. Oh, how do you do? It's the fire chief.
Unmute, 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 unmute. Burn.
It's the fire
Good
chief.
evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Mrs. Smith. You get to be angry.
Oh,
You see, it's because my wife is a little chagrined at having been proved wrong.
There's been an argument between Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Mr. Fire Chief.
this is no business of yours. I beg you not to involve outsiders in our family arguments.
Oh, my dear, this is not so serious. The fire chief is an old friend of the family. His mother courted me, and I knew his father. He asked me to give him my daughter in marriage if ever I had one, and he died waiting.
That's neither his fault nor yours.
Well, what is it all about?
My husband was claiming.
No, it was you who was claiming.
Yes, it was she.
No, it was he.
Don't get excited. You tell me, Mrs. Smith.
Well, this is how it was. It is difficult for me to speak openly to you, but a fireman is also a confessor.
Well, then.
We were arguing because my husband said that each time the doorbell rings, there is always someone there.
It is plausible.
And I was saying that each time the doorbell rings, there's never anyone there.
It might seem strange.
But it has been proved, not by theoretical demonstrations, but by facts.
That's false. Since the fire chief is here, he rang the bell, I opened the door, and there he was.
When?
But just now.
Yes, but it was only when you heard the doorbell ring the fourth time that there was someone there. And the fourth time does not count.
Never. It is only the first 3 times that count.
Mr. Fire Chief, permit me in my turn to ask you several questions.
Go right ahead.
When I opened the door and saw you, it was really you who had rung the bell?
Yes, it was I.
You were at the door, and you rang in order to be admitted.
I do not deny it.
You see, I was right. When you hear the doorbell ring, that means someone rang it. You certainly cannot say that the fire chief is not someone.
Certainly not. I repeat to you that I was speaking of the first 3 times, since the fourth time does not count.
And when the doorbell rang the first time, was it you?
No, it was not I.
You see, the doorbell rang and there was no one there.
Perhaps it was someone else?
Were you standing at the door for a long time?
Of an hour.
And you saw no one?
No one of that.
And did you hear the bell when it rang the second time?
Yes, and that wasn't I either. And there was one there.
Victory! I was right.
Not so fast. And what were you doing at the door?
Nothing. I was just standing there. I was thinking of many things.
But the third time, it was not you who rang?
Oh, yes, it was I.
But when the door was opened, nobody was in sight.
That was because I had hidden myself. As a joke.
Don't make jokes, Mr. Fire Chief. This business is too sad.
In short, we still do not know whether, when the doorbell rings, there is someone there or not.
Never anyone.
Always someone.
I am going to reconcile you. Both are partly right. When the doorbell rings, sometimes there is someone. Other times, there is no one.
Well, that seems logical to me.
I think so too.
Life is simple, really. Go on and kiss each other.
Just kissed each other a little while ago.
They'll kiss each other tomorrow. They have plenty of time.
Mr. Fire Chief, since you have helped us settle this, please make yourself comfortable. Take off your helmet and sit down for a moment.
Excuse me, I won't stay long. I should like to remove my helmet, but I haven't time to sit down. I must admit that I have come to see you for another reason. I am on official business.
What can we do for you, Mr. Fire Chief?
I must beg you to excuse my indiscretion. You don't mind in front of them?
Say whatever you like.
We're old friends. They tell us everything.
Speak.
Well, is there a fire here?
Oh, why do you ask us that?
It's because, well, pardon me, I have orders to extinguish all fires in the city.
Or
Yes, all.
I don't know. I don't think so. Do you want me to go and look?
There can't be one here. There's no smell of anything burning.
None at all. You don't have a little fire in the chimney, something burning in the attic or in the cellar? A little fire just starting at least.
I'm so sorry to disappoint you, but I do not believe there's anything here at the moment. I promise that I will notify you when we do have something.
Oh, please don't forget it. It would be a great help.
That's a promise.
And there's nothing burning in your house either.
no, unfortunately.
Things aren't going so well just now.
Oh, very poorly. There's been almost nothing. A few trifles, a chimney, a barn, nothing important. It doesn't bring in much. And since there are no returns, the profits on output are very meager.
The times are bad. That's true all over. It's the same this year with business and agriculture as it is with fires. Nothing is prospering.
No wheat, no fires.
No floods, neither.
But there is some sugar.
That's because it is imported.
It's hard in the case of fires. The tariffs are too high.
All the same, there's an occasional asphyxiation by gas, but that's unusual too. For instance, a young woman asphyxiated herself last week. She had left the gas on.
Had she forgotten it?
No, but she thought it was her comb.
Well, these confusions are always dangerous.
You go to see the match dealer?
Nah, there's nothing doing there. He's insured against fires.
Why don't you go see the Vicar of Wakefield and use my name?
Now, I don't have the right to extinguish clergymen's fires. The bishop would get angry. Besides, they extinguish their fires themselves, or else they have them put out by Vestal virgins.
Go see the Durans.
No, I can't do that either. He's not English. He's only been naturalized. And naturalized citizens have the right to have houses, but not the right to have them put out if they're burning.
And nevertheless, when they set fire to it last year, it was put out just the same.
He did that all by himself, clandestinely. But it's not I who would report him.
Oh, neither would I.
Mr. Fire Chief, since you are not too pressed, stay a little while longer. You would be doing us a favor.
Oh! Shall I tell you some stories?
Oh, by all means, how charming of you.
Yes,
Yes,
some stories. Hurrah!
And what is even more interesting is the fact that firemen's stories are all true. They're based on experience.
Well, I speak from my own experience. Truth, nothing but truth, no fiction.
That's right. Truth is never found in books, only in life.
Begin.
Begin.
Be quiet, he is beginning.
Excuse me, don't look at me that way. You embarrass me. You know that I am shy.
Oh, isn't he charming?
I'm going to try to begin anyhow, but promise me you won't listen.
But if we don't listen to you, we won't hear you.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
I told you, he's just a boy.
Oh, that sweet child.
No, chin up.
Well then. The dog and the cow. An experimental fable. Once upon a time, another cow asked another dog, "Why have you not swallowed your trunk?" "Pardon me," replied the dog. "It is because I thought that I was an elephant."
What is the moral?
Ha ha ha, that's for you to find out.
He's right.
That's another.
Well, a young calf had eaten too much ground glass. As a result, it was obliged to give birth. It brought forth a cow into the world. However, since the calf was male, the cow could not call him Mama, nor could she call him Papa, because the calf was too little. The calf was then obliged to get married, and the registry office carried out all the details completely Completely a la mode.
A la mode de Ken.
Like tripes.
Oh, you've heard that one.
It was all in the papers.
It happened not far from our house.
Well, but I'll tell you another. The cock. Once upon a time, a cock wished to play with the dog. But he had no luck because everyone recognized him right away.
On the other hand, the dog that wished to play the cock was never recognized.
Oh, I'll tell you one. The snake and the fox. Once upon a time, a snake came up to a fox and said, "It seems to me that I know you." The fox replied to him, "Me too." Then the snake, "Give me some money." "A fox doesn't give money," replied the tricky animal, who, in order to escape, jumped down into a deep ravine full of strawberries and chicken honey. But the snake was there, waiting for him with a Mephistophelian laugh. The fox pulled out his knife, shouting, "I'm going to teach you how to live." Then he took to flight, turning his back. But he had no luck. The snake was quicker. With a well-chosen blow to his fist, he struck the fox in the middle of his forehead, which broke into 1,000 pieces, while he cried, "No, no, 4 times no, I'm not your daughter."
It's interesting.
It's not bad.
My congratulations.
Not so good. And anyway, I've heard it before.
It's terrible.
But it wasn't even true.
Yes, unfortunately.
It's your turn, dear lady.
I only know one, and I'm going to tell it to you. It's called the bouquet.
My wife has always been romantic.
She's a true Englishwoman.
Well, here it is. Once upon a time, a fiancé gave a bouquet of flowers to his fiancée, who said thanks. But before she had said thanks, he, without saying a single word, took the flowers he had given her in order to teach her a good lesson, and he said, "I take them back." He said goodbye and took them back and went off in all directions.
Oh, charming. Mwah.
You have a wife, Mr. Smith, of whom all the world is jealous.
It's true. My wife is intelligence personified. She's even more intelligent than I. In any case, she is much more feminine. Everyone says so.
Let's have another, Mr. Fire Chief.
Oh, no, it's too late.
Tell us one anyway.
I'm too tired.
Please do us a favor.
I beg you.
No.
You have a heart of ice. We're sitting on hot coals.
I implore you.
Righto.
He agrees. He's going to bore us again.
Shh.
No luck. I was too polite.
The head cold. My brother-in-law had, on the paternal side, a cousin whose maternal uncle had a father-in-law whose paternal grandfather had married as his second wife a young native whose brother he had met on one of his travels, a girl of whom he was enamored and by whom he had a son who married an intrepid lady pharmacist who was none other than the niece of an unknown fourth-class petty officer of the Royal Navy, whose adopted father had an aunt who spoke Spanish fluently, and who was perhaps one of the granddaughters of an engineer who died young, himself the grandson of the owner of a vineyard which had produced mediocre wine, but who had a second cousin, a stay-at-home sergeant major, whose son had married a very pretty young woman, a divorcee whose first husband was the son of a loyal patriot who, in hope of making his fortune, had managed to bring up one of his daughters so that she could marry a footman who had known Rothschild, and whose brother, after having changed his trade several times, married and had a daughter whose stunted great-grandfather wore spectacles which had been given him by a cousin of his, the brother-in-law of a man from Portugal, son of a natural miller who, not too badly off, whose foster brother had married the daughter of a former country doctor, who himself was foster brother of the son of a forester, himself a natural son of another country doctor, married 3 times in a row, whose third wife...
I knew that third wife, if I'm not mistaken. She ate chicken sitting on a hornet's nest.
Oh, that's not the same one.
Gosh!
As I was saying, whose third wife was the daughter of the best midwife in the region and who, early left a widow,
Like my wife.
had married a glazier who was full of life and who had, by the daughter of the station master, a child who had burned his bridges.
His breeches.
No, his bridge game.
And had married an oyster woman whose father had a brother mayor of a small town who had taken as his wife a blonde school teacher whose cousin, a fly fisherman,
A fly-by-night?
had married another blonde school teacher named Marie, whose brother was married to another Marie, also a blonde school teacher.
Since she's blonde, she must be Marie.
And whose father had been reared in Canada by an old woman who was the niece of a priest whose grandmother occasionally in the winter, like everyone else, caught a cold.
A curious story. Almost unbelievable.
If you catch a cold, you should get yourself a coat.
It's a useless precaution, but absolutely necessary.
Excuse me, Mr. Fire Chief, but I did not follow your story very well. At the end, when we got the grandmother of the priest, I got mixed up.
One always gets mixed up in the hands of the priest.
Oh, yes. Mr. Fire Chief, begin again. Everyone wants to hear.
Oh, I don't know whether I'd be able to. I'm on official business. I'll tell you, it all depends on what time it is.
Oh, we don't have the time here.
But the clock...
It runs badly, it is contradictory, and always dictates the opposite of what the hour really is.
Wake up, Mary.
Mary fell asleep.
No.
Okay. What
What
do you want? What do you want?
What have you come in here for?
I hope, madam and sir, will excuse me, and the ladies and gentlemen too. I would like to tell you a story myself.
What did she say?
I believe that
I believe that our friend's maid is going to... she wants to tell us a story too.
No, who does she think she is?
Why are you butting in?
This is really uncalled for, Mary.
No, but it is she. Incredible.
And you?
incredible here.
What does this all mean?
You know each other?
And how?
I'm so glad to see you again at last.
Oh! This is too much here in our home in the suburbs of London.
It's not proper.
It was she who extinguished my first fires.
I'm your little fire hose.
If that is the case, dear friends, these emotions are understandable, human, honorable.
All that is human is honorable.
Even so, I don't like to see it here among us.
She has not been properly brought up.
No, you have too many prejudices.
What I think is that a maid, after all, even though it's none of my business, is never anything but a maid.
Even if she can sometimes be a rather good detective.
Let me go.
Don't be upset. They're not so bad, really.
You two are very touching, but at the same time a little...
Yes, that's exactly the word.
A little too exhibitionistic.
There is a native British modesty. Forgive me for attempting, yet again, to define my thought. Not understood by foreigners, even by specialists, thanks to which I may thus express myself. Of course, I don't mean I refer to you.
I was going to tell you.
Don't tell us anything.
Oh, yes.
Go, my little Mary. Go quietly to the kitchen and read your poems before the mirror.
You know, even though I'm not a maid, I always read poems before the mirror.
This morning, when you looked at yourself, the mirror didn't see yourself.
Well, that's because I wasn't there yet.
All the same, I could perhaps recite a little poem for you.
Oh, my little Mary, you are frightfully obstinate.
Going to recite a poem, then. Is that agreed? It is a poem entitled The Fire, in honor of the fire chief. The polypoids were burning in the wood. A stone caught fire. The castle caught fire. The forest caught fire. The men caught fire. The women caught fire. The birds caught fire. The fish caught fire. The water caught fire. The sky caught fire. The ashes caught fire. The smoke caught fire. The fire caught fire. Everything caught fire. Caught fire, caught fire.
That sends chills up my spine.
And yet there's a certain warmth in those lines.
Righty? All the same.
You're
Oh, I
exaggerating.
thought it was marvelous.
All the same.
You're exaggerating.
Just a minute. I admit, all this is very subjective, but this is my conception of the world. My world, my dream, my ideal. And now this reminds me that I must leave. Since you don't have the time here, I must tell you that in exactly 3/4 of an hour and 16 minutes, I'm having a fire at the other end of the city. Consequently, I must hurry, even though it will be quite unimportant.
What will it be? A little chimney fire?
No, not even that. A straw fire and a little heartburn.
Well, we're sorry to see you go.
You have been very entertaining.
Thanks to you, we have passed a truly Cartesian 1/4 of an hour.
Speaking of that, the Bald Soprano.
She always wears her hair in the same style.
Ah, then goodbye, ladies and gentlemen.
Good luck and good fire.
Let's hope so for everybody.
I can buy a pocket knife for my brother, but you can't buy Ireland for your grandfather.
One walks on his feet, but one heats with electricity or coal.
He who sells an ox today will have an egg tomorrow.
In real life, one must look out of the windows.
One can sit down on a chair when the chair doesn't have any.
One must always think of everything.
The ceiling is above, the floor below.
When I say yes, it's only a matter of speaking.
To each his own.
Take a circle, caress it, and it will turn vicious.
A schoolmaster teaches his pupils to read, but the cat suckles her young when they are small.
Nevertheless, it was the cow that gave us something, tails.
When I'm in the country, I love the solitude and the quiet.
You are not old enough yet for that.
Benjamin Franklin was right. You are more nervous than he.
What are the 7 days of the week?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Edward is a clerk, and his sister Nancy is a typist, and his brother William a shop assistant.
An odd family.
I prefer a bird in the bush to a sparrow in the barrow.
Rather a steak in a chalet than gristle in a cask.
An Englishman's home is truly his castle.
I don't know enough Spanish to make me understood.
I'll give you my mother-in-law's slippers if you'll give me your husband's coffin.
I am looking for a monophysite priest to marry to our maid.
Bread is a staff, whereas bread is also a staff. And an oak springs from an oak every morning at dawn.
My uncle lives in the country, but that's none of the midwife's business.
Paper is for writing, the cat's for the rat, cheese is for scratching.
The car goes very fast, but the cook beats batter and better.
Don't beat turkeys. Rather kiss the conspirator.
Charity begins at home.
I'm waiting for the aqueduct to come and see me at my windmill.
One can prove that social progress is definitely better with sugar.
Oh, to hell with polishing.
Following this last speech of Mr. Smith's, the others were silent for a moment, stupefied. We sensed that there was a certain nervous irritation. The strokes of the clock are more nervous, too. The speeches which follow must be said at first in a glacial, hostile tone. The hostility and the nervousness increase. At the end of the scene, the four characters must be standing very close to each other, screaming their speeches, raising their fists, ready to throw themselves upon each other.
One doesn't polish spectacles with black wax.
Yes, but with money, one can buy anything.
I'd rather kill a rabbit than sing in the garden.
Cockatoos, 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 cockatoos.
Such caca, 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 such caca.
Such cascades of cacas, 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 such cascades of cacas.
Dogs have fleas, dogs have fleas.
Cactus, coccyx, crocus, cocked, cockroach.
In casca, in case we ask.
I'd rather lay an egg in a box than go and step on an ox.
Oh, me gnash my teeth.
Crocodile!
Let's go and slap Ulysses.
I'm going to live in my cabana among my cacao trees.
Cacao trees on cacao farms don't bear coconuts. They yield cacao. Cacao trees on cacao farms don't bear coconuts. They yield coca. Coca trees on coca farms don't bear coconuts. They yield coca.
Mice have lice, lice haven't mice.
Don't rooch my brooch.
Don't smooch the brooch.
Groom the goose, don't goose the groom.
The goose grooms.
Groom your tooth.
Groom the bridegroom. Groom the bridegroom.
Seducer, seduced.
Scaramouche.
Something touch.
Go take a douche.
I've been goose.
Son Nitouche stoops to my cartouche.
Who stooped to blame and I never choose to stoop.
Robert.
Browning.
Oh,
Rudyard.
Rudyard Kipling.
Kipling.
Robert Kipling.
Mr.
Rudyard Browning.
Mr. Rudyard Browning.
Oh, silly gobble gobbles. Silly gobble gobbles.
Marietta, spot the pot.
Krishnamurti, Krishnamurti, Krishnamurti.
The Pope elopes. The Pope got no horoscope. The horoscope's bespoke.
Bazaar, bazaar, bazooka.
Bizarre Beaux-Arts Braziers.
A-E-I-O-U, A-E-I-O-U, A-E-I-O-U.
BD, BD, CD, FG, HL, IGK, WXYZ.
From stage to stooge. From stage to surge.
Choo 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 choo.
It's,
Not
That.
Way.
it's,
oh,
Ver.
Here.
Altogether completely infuriated, screaming in each other's ears. The light is extinguished. In the darkness we hear an increasingly rapid rhythm.
it's not that way. It's over here.
It's not that way.
Not
It's
that way.
over here.
It's over
not that
here.
way.
Not that way. It's
Chopin,
over
Chopin,
here.
Chopin,
Not that
Chopin,
way.
That way. It's
Chopin.
over here.
Not that way. It's
Not
over
that way.
here.
It's over here. It's over here.
The words cease abruptly. Again, the lights come on. Mr. and Mrs. Martin are seated like the Smiths at the beginning of the play. The play begins with the Martins, who say exactly the same lines as the Smiths in the first scene, while the curtain softly falls. End of play.
My.
Oh my